Hey everyone, and welcome to Trader Jake's channel. Just wanted to review the three names that I had went over and mentioned these trade ideas on the last video. You can go back to that one to re-listen to it and watch what I was saying, and then look back at what I'm about to show you and how it played out. Essentially perfect on two of the names and a little bit differently on Google, but still followed along the lines of essentially what I was going for. So in the last video, I had mentioned on this day after this gap filled on Google, it found exhaustion into this gap fill. It was getting so much weakness from there that the following day, I was looking for it to gap near the lows of this bar's low. And from there, get a continuation sell off back down into this gap fill. We essentially got that in the next 2 days coming into this Friday. And from there, I'm still thinking that this comes lower based upon what I am seeing in some of the other tech names. It might not be an actionable short right away. I would maybe see what things do Monday and Tuesday with the elections coming up, but just wanted to show how this played out relative to what I had mentioned. So going into the next one, I have Meta, and I am including the tweet with the exact levels so you can use them in reference to the chart and how it essentially traded from level to level with no traffic, no obstacles in the way to get this clean move. And this is why it was my favorite name going into Thursday because of this setup that was potentially going to play out, which it did exactly what I wanted it to do. The only difference is that I ideally wanted it to gap under this level of 576 or at least gap near the 578. But you can see this is the 578 area right here. And we got failure right off of the open. And then the setup played out exactly what I was looking for. So it was still valid even with it gapping too high because it was able to stay below this 576 to 78, which is this zone right here. It's not a coincidence that this is where price had paused an hour before getting this breakdown, which essentially gave us that two legs down into the next level for that 564. This was, I think, a $27 drop from the high a day to the low a day. Yeah, exactly a $27 drop. And that was an absolutely explosive short if you were able to capture the options. I was in the 580 puts and the 575 puts. I got in off of the open based upon my specific strategy that I am trading. So I was entering before it even got below this level for me because I saw the potential in it and I wanted to get that earlier entry to give me an extra $3 or $4 of wiggle room, which it worked out in my favor. I had a tight stop in this case, which was, of course, the high a day. And this played out pretty perfectly. And even coming into Friday, you can see where was the low a day? We swept Thursday's low. We did not get any closes below on the 15-minute of my 564 level. From there, we got to bounce back up into this 570.30, and you can see how price is just building around it before getting the sell-off end of day, which essentially went nowhere. It was just an exhaustion flip after sweeping yesterday's low a day. But this trade setup played out so perfect. And that's why I love trading meta because when it moves, it moves. And when there is range from level to level, you cannot pass on these opportunities. $27 move, almost straight down all day. Go back to Thursday and look, and you will probably not see any other name that made as clean of a move with as much of a range unless they had earnings that day, which was a great catalyst to give us this range after they crushed all of those premiums that were absurdly outpriced. So going into the next one, going into the SPY, and this one I had mentioned my thesis was coming into this day before this gap down that you can see over here on the right side on this daily chart. I had posted the video before we got this gap down, but I was looking for us to find weakness and gap down closer to this 578 level for the short into 575.50, down into 571.20, and then down into 565. We did not gap and open near the 578 level. However, we opened exactly at the 575.50 and we got the same exact move that I was looking for from level to level with nothing in between to give us any kind of friction in this trade, which is exactly what we want. This was also a gap down into weekly continuity, taking out the prior week's lows. This is another sign that this short was valid, especially if it was going to stay in force. And this is such a beautiful move to be had because you can see even the next day, look how reactive that 575.50 is. And look at where we opened 571.20, level to level, 2 days in a row, back to back. And this move that you've seen right here is not a coincidence. It's how the market moves from level to level. And going into next week, I'm under the impression, based off of what I am gauging in the market, I think there's going to be some pain ahead. It might be to start out the week and we try to reverse it after the elections. We'll see. But I think that we're going to get down to this 565 probably very quickly to start the week. If we don't happen to gap down straight to 565, we're probably going to get there Monday. If we do not hold 565 Monday or Tuesday, watch out. This is not going to be an easy week to trade, so I would just trade with caution. It's going to start getting a lot more hectic going into the end of the year. If you had any trouble trading the past 2 months, you were probably not going to find it any easier going into the end of the year because, in my opinion, there is some violent actions coming, and you really want to stay on the right side of these trades. There's range to be had, so don't stick to any bias. And if you're wrong, don't stay wrong long. This move that is coming, probably this week, is going to catch a lot of people off guard. And going into next week, after it more than likely happens, I'll of course review and go forward from this video to update and see how it exactly played out and see how the market is still moving in a controlled way that's not random, but it's also playing out in a very aggressive state. So just be very, very careful. I can't stress that enough going into the next couple of weeks. The last name that I wanted to go over is TSM. This is a new setup. This is something that I'm watching because, for one, semi names have been a little bit weak in the past week or two. However, certain ones like AVGO, TSM, Marvel, which is MRVL, and then, of course, everyone knows NVIDIA. All four of them are looking constructive for higher moves. Meanwhile, you got AMD getting destroyed to the downside for the exact reasons that I mentioned in the other video as well. But I really do like this TSM potential to hold this previous all-time high breakout after we got this 2 week inside bar here that is closing a little bit below it, but it's not so far down that I'm not interested in this setup. But if this can hold this general area going into the next few days, I'm looking for a dip buy swing for probably November 18th expirations. Those are the most liquid contracts I've seen, so I am looking at that personally. I would probably look at the 205 or 200 calls. I haven't looked at the premium, so I don't know what their pricing is at yet. But that is generally what I am looking at. That's what I got for you for today. See you guys in the next video.